yoga.
And welcome to Light Years. Sam Sfandiari here. I have a special guest across from me. Some may say the most requested guest in Light Years history. The original point guard of the show. The man who stopped Andy, Lou, and myself from getting in trouble. Well, no, that's not true. No one could do that. But
yeah.
Super producer Ben Cruz. What's up, man?
Not much, dude. I made suggestions. Sometimes, kind of like Jordan Poole, they went in one ear, not the other, and you just kind of shrug your shoulders and you keep it moving. You know what I mean?
Thanks for having me on, man. In this analogy, does that make me and Andy, Steph and Clay, where we just want to cook, and you're? Well, actually, I guess in your analogy, you'd be Andre Iguodala, where you're like, you don't need to shoot it every time. Let's have a big picture here.
Exactly. Sticking in the podcast room, Andre Iguodala. I'll take that.
Andre, by the way, I don't know if we're going to ever see Andre play again. Unsure, given the hand injury, the timeline, and quite frankly, this team doesn't really look like it's going to make it to the finals, which seems like when he's going to be back. So it's weird, man. Andre is one of my he is forever warrior, just an all-time favorite player, right? So it's kind of weird.
Isn't that the most relatable thing as we get older, though? Just he broke his hand or his wrist basically by on a 180 dunk, like something we all dream about doing.
Old man injury.
Yeah, that's the way to go out, though. If this is the way he goes out, that's a hell of a way to go out.
He saw, it was the day that we found out that SVB was, going to get backed by the government. He's like, yes. All my startups will be fine. He got a little extra pep in his step, and then old manness took over. So,
right.
You and I can relate with our billions and ventures. Anyway,
you're right, exactly.
The Warriors lose tonight, 119-133. This is a double pod. We didn't record after the Hawks game with the idea that we would do a back-to-back recap, and because they're consistent, they lost both road games, and they are the most Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde team I've ever known. I mean, I guess we could start there. Have you ever seen anything like this? They literally are the 96 Bulls at home and like the Washington Generals on the road. I can't think of a team with this level of variance between both sides. I can think of teams who are better at home than on the road, but the variance, can't think of a team like that.
It's really shocking, the system. I mean, I've been watching basketball my entire life, basically, and this is the first year where you've really seen something like this. And I mean, I've tried to look at every road game, and try to come up with an explanation, right? Where you're like, oh, there, in the beginning of the season, you chalk it up to, oh, it's early, they're still figuring things out, roster turnover, the championship hangover. And this is where I've landed, Sam. This is now where I am, where the championship hangover thing is real, right? And that's fine. But
12 month. Well, actually, 10 month, maybe 9.
Yeah, it's really long.
Now I'm having calendar issues. So,
yeah. But you remember what it's like when you're hungover and you're not at your home. You're just discombobulated. You're frazzled. You're trying to get home because that once being at home centers you, right? So this is just where I am now. I'm making irrational comparisons because it is a Jekyll and Hyde situation.
There are no rational points to be made, so you might as well go with the irrational, right?
Right. No, and I had to come up with something new because I mean, they're awful. They are awful on the road, and it stems far beyond the early season struggles or whatever you want to call it, or guys in and out of the lineup. I mean, you saw that when they asked Steph about it, kind of when they were about to go on this road trip, and he cut off whoever was asking him the question and said, "I don't know." And you can tell that even in that tone, he hasn't seen anything like this in his entire career.
Yes, he's not a happy camper. That's for sure.
at all.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that's where we should start. Like the road woes are a thing. I thought there were positive signs at various points tonight, and like just like every other irrational human being, I thought they were turning the corner every time I saw a positive sign. I thought that was
Yeah,
it. That was the moment that positivity was going to happen. And what happens next? Dylan Brooks hits 3 threes, or like, Jared Jackson hits a bunch, and you get where I'm going with this, where it's just like you can get fooled into it, but they come back to it. And we all read the article on your site, The Ringer, kind of trying to break down. And Zach did a very good job. And I just keep going back to, I don't think it's anything schematic. I don't think it's like Steve Kerr is just like, he comes up with better game plans when he sleeps in his own bed. He's like, that's the one, I think they're a young, undermanned team. And they are young, which is weird to say because the core is not young, but like everyone outside the core is young. And then a couple bad things happen on the road, and then things snowball. And I really think it's that simple. They haven't been able to get out of it. Like you would think your veterans would pull you out of it, but they haven't actually had their veteran team together at all points. We all know Andrew Wiggins is out right now, but before he was out, Steph Curry was out. Before Steph Curry was out, Wiggins and Steph were out prior. And it's been something the whole season where they haven't had their consistent core the whole way through. And maybe they should have a deeper roster, and we can argue about that. And, I really don't want to, but like the point is, it's just kind of been, if it's not one thing, it's not another. And that's where we are right now. Right.
Could it be just as simple? And I think I might have mentioned this last time I was on with Andy, was the vibes around the team are just, they're not great. Just obviously from the beginning of the season till now. And obviously when you're at home, you'll play better. The role players will play better. Everyone kind of levels up at home, right? Just that bonus. I mean, vibes is where, when you're on the road, that can help you. That camaraderie, that team chemistry. Because
and on the flip side, the vibes were pretty nice at Chase. There's like you see it. They hit a couple shots. The crowd gets into it. All the startup bros are super hyped. And Andy Lou's taking off his Patagonia, throwing it over his head. They're getting into it. So to your point, to the vibes,
And I mean, just you hear about these NBA guys when they're on the road, and that's when they say they bond and they get together. I'm sure at some point we'll get the 30 for 30 or the last dance of this Warriors team, and we'll find out like they didn't go to dinner one time together on the road, or some like weird story like that'll kind of explain these road woes even more.
Ruined the season.
Right. And maybe that was bringing back GP2. Maybe he was like that connective glue. That's what he was supposed to be, but now he's not even playing. So I'm going to be interested to see when all that eventually comes out. But I mean, again, all rational explanation is gone. Is it just vibes? Like, is it just vibes? And it might just be that. I don't know.
I mean, at this point, watching them, it does feel like it's a vibes issue. It doesn't like, okay, actually, I take that back. It feels like a two-pronged issue. One, they genuinely feel undermanned. They're not a deep team, and they're not really equipped to not play without Andrew Wiggins. Just like they're not equipped to play without Steph Curry. And we can go through it. Like they made a lot of gambles on young players, which didn't work out. Like they thought Wiseman would be better than he was. He's traded midseason. They thought Moses Moody would be kind of a big time wing contributor. That hasn't happened, and on down the line. And, we can debate if that's smart or whatever, but like the point is it hasn't worked out. Right.
Yeah. I mean, the roster construction is a whole other thing, right? When and obviously Wiggins not being there has had this domino effect that's forced everyone to kind of play out of position and almost like the hierarchy, right? Because he's high up there in terms of, when the Warriors struggle offensively and they go through these dry spurts, like Wiggs was another option that they would go to kind of get a bucket because he could. And now if Steph and Clay, if they shoot like they did tonight, I mean, again, what was the combined 11 for 32? They're
Not
cooked.
good.
Yeah.
Not good. And even if it's not on the offensive side, like we know Wiggins is their best perimeter defender.
Yeah.
And he's not there right now. And honestly, when you look at the roster, they don't have as many defenders as they had last year. Like I know they reacquired GP2, but he's not healthy. So
yeah,
maybe when he comes back and Wiggins come back, we can say they have as many defenders as they had last year. But they don't. So a lot of it is just, I would say from the outside looking in, it's the most frustrating thing on earth when you don't have an easy out other than players aren't in lineup, right? Like when it's players aren't in lineup, you just have to be like, it is what it is. When it's a situation where a certain player is just underperforming, it's easier to talk about and it's easier to explain. Like, we got to get rid of that guy. That will save everything,
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like that's kind of the situation where it's just frustrating. Like I keep coming back to that word. That's kind of where I'm at.
Oh, I mean, 1,000%. And it's even more frustrating, I think, because, you talked about the glimmers of hope earlier, specifically in this game, but that's just been the season, right? These 2 5-game win streaks they've had this year,
you feel like they're turning. Yeah.
The most recent one, the national narrative was, oh, are the Warriors a sleeping giant? You're right. Are they coming? Because everyone was just waiting for it. And all of a sudden now, back to 500, on the precipice of potentially missing the playoffs entirely. It's just wild what this team is, and it's the most interesting, I think, of the last 10 years, but it's also by far the most frustrating to watch. If you're hoping that they succeed, if you're hoping they don't succeed, it's probably entertaining as all hell, right? So, all rough, all the way around.
Yeah, it is. And so let's get into it. With that said, like Steph and Clay were not particularly good tonight. The players who were interesting tonight were the players that maybe in the beginning of the season we thought would contribute more than they have to date. Like I'm not trying to be anything. Jonathan Kuminga and Jordan Poole, the 2 leading scorers for the Warriors tonight. Jordan Poole specifically got to the line a ton, 9 free throw attempps,
especially
21
that third.
total. Yeah. 21 total. Yeah, no, I mean, he kind of dragged the Warriors back into the game when it felt like, it was going to be like, oh, it's going to be like that again. They're going to get blown out. And sadly it happened the following quarter. But anyway, like that sort of thing. And then Kuminga, 24 points, 8 for 16 from the field, 8 rebounds. And at various times in the game, it felt like he physically asserted himself to be kind of the best player on the team at times. And I don't want to go for like, silver lining stuff, but like it is kind of positive in some ways to see that. I don't know. What do you think? Or let's start with Kuminga. Like, where have you been with him on this season?
I mean, before he got, generally net positive, I think is where I've landed now, because I mean, he has become an integral piece of their rotation, right? And you see why. Defensively, he could be, even when Wiggs and GP are back, could he be the best defender? It's possible. He's not yet, but there are nights where I think he could, just, because of his athleticism and his ability to get after it that way. But I mean, offensively too, he's the only guy really who kind of puts pressure on the rim, like in that way that you want him to, or that the team, no one else in the team really does, right? Obviously tonight hit a couple of threes and kind of kept them in the game. But I mean, as a whole, you see how he could, or on the season as a whole, I should say, you kind of see where he could be a difference maker, right? And kind of, if Iguodala could shoot a little bit better, right? Like he's starting to fill that role on where Andre was, kind of at Andre's peak. So it's encouraging, and you just kind of want to see that on a more consistent basis. Obviously, he's had a couple injuries that have started with the start and stops have been a little frustrating, but health is that kind of comes and goes in an 82 game season. So generally feeling good about where he's at. Obviously they decided he was good enough to keep kind of around the trade deadline, or that he's going to be an integral part of this team moving forward with that, so that they didn't move forward with that trade for Anunoby. But I mean, net positive, I guess that's my long-winded way of kind of getting there.
Yeah, I mean, don't you always feel when you watch Kuminga, you're like, I want more. I want, like, Steve, play him more.
Yeah.
They're clearly not in first place contending for a ring. So please play him more, because like he's the most exciting young player to have on the roster. And I understand it. Like it's not like he's not making mistakes. It's not like they're not coaching him. It's not like he's going through a standard development cycle, but like he is kind of, look, if this season's going to be a wash where they don't go deep, like you hope he turns out to be the player who benefited from it development, right?
Right. No, 1,000%. I mean, and it's one of those things, right, where you sometimes, I guess, within this team, you forget how young he is, right? And
yeah,
I mean, again, was awesome tonight. Was one of the reasons they were even in the game. And then he has that that breakaway where you're just like, oh, he's going to keep him in the game even more. He's going to about to set a career high, and he just loses the ball out of bounds, right, with no one really around him, and you get frustrated. But it's also kind of part of the development, and again, he played 30 minutes tonight, which is encouraging. He's not going to get that every night, unfortunately, right, because of kind of this yo-yo thing that Kerr does with him. But I mean, again, one of the, like, he played 30 minutes. Curry did, Steph did, Draymond and Poole. So he's clearly in the mix there, which is nice to see. You just kind of want to see it even more as we kind of go down the stretch here.
Yeah, for sure. And then Jordan. Let's be real. Like he's been kind of he's had a rough year.
Oh yeah.
He had a phenomenal year last year. We all were super excited and thought he'd build upon it. And it's just, I wouldn't say he's progressed. It feels like he's taken a step back, even though he's had some games where he's clearly shown progression, but it's not been the same thing. Tonight he did do some exciting stuff in terms of kind of pulling them into the game in the third quarter and being that team. But I mean, where are you with him? Because I feel like I can't open my timeline without just Jordan. It's like he is the player that draws the ire of fans.
I mean, and that obviously comes down to the extension that he got over the summer, right? He just looked at it in a different lens, which is totally fair, right? Well, once you get that bag, that just comes with the territory. Where I'm at, I don't know if I've settled on where I am with JP. Like, is it a situation where this summer, am I in the Warriors need to trade him mode? I don't know if I'm there yet. Again, you kind of, obviously, when he was about to get this extension, I think everyone was hopeful that he would get it and that he would stick around because of what he showed last year. The shocking thing is him just shooting the same 3-point percentage as Draymond, right? 33%.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, again, if he's at 35-ish, 36, I don't know if that obviously means, he's scoring a little bit more each game, and maybe that's swinging the momentum in certain games, and maybe, that's swinging their record a couple of games, the other way. So, it is on the margins there, but I still say he's one of the only guys who can create in the same light as Steph, especially when you don't have kind of Wiggins and in the mix there. So I'm if there was a pie chart of should the Warriors trade Jordan Poole, I'm at like 55% no. So that's what, but I could be swayed. You know what I mean? Like, depending on how the season goes, and if he the his teammates' reactions whenever he messes up a defensive assignment or just does something wild is so funny.
Some of those are no comment. That's where I'm at with them. My perspective on that is I need to know what in return, because I still think he's a very good player, and I think at this point there's a little underrating how good he is. Like I am very open to the idea that you will never get full Jordan in the context of Steph and Clay, because they're always going to be the first choice players. And if that's the way it's going to be, maybe you need to move him and look another direction. Like best for all parties type of thing, like get a defensive player, that sort of thing. God, they could really use a defensive player, but, but I also want to be conscious of the fact I think he's really talented, and I'm not willing to just trade him for the sake of it, So I feel like I'm balancing those two things. And I think more than anything, look, man, none of this is going to happen for 3 months. Like they can't make this trade until the 4th of July or whatever, like the first week of July. So I just don't want to let it consume me, because based on the way this team is going, I'm going to be putting a lot of off-season content together. Very quick. So why even bother doing it early, right?
I mean, if he played more, if he played more like he did tonight, a little bit more aggressive, trying to get to the line, kind of switching it up, because the whole conversation around him, even kind of dating back to last year, was like, oh, he's like a diet version of Steph, right? He does all this, all this kind of, he runs the same actions as Steph. They run kind of the same things. And that might have gotten into his head a little bit, right? Kind of with all these, these step back threes that he prefers, when in reality, when he's trying to get to the hole, he's pretty dynamic, right? And he just doesn't do it as much as, I don't know, he did last year, where it was like he brought kind of a different dimension a little bit. And tonight was a little bit of a reminder of, oh, he can still, like, if he's a really good free throw shooter, obviously, and it feels like he hasn't used that part of his game as much, in terms of trying to get to the line anyway. Kind of, whether that's, I'm not saying he needs to go full James Harden, Houston Rockets with it, but like, I don't know, do something different. Like the step back threes, and the three isn't falling from this year as at the rate that it was, last year. And I don't know if he's in the mindset of, mixing it up, but I don't know, maybe
I will say statistically, it's, if you go deep in the data, his percentages are more tied to his feet being set than anything. And look, we all watch Jordan Poole. There's a lot of kick out wild shots that go up over the time. And like when he is locked in, he does less of that. And when he does less of that, they go in. And, I feel like he's, I don't want to say criticized, but like, dude, he plays with the two best shooters of all time. So there's a lot of like, what is that shot? You can't make it with two dudes draped all over you. Like that sort of thing, where it's just like, I guess it's, it's the same concept as like following up Steve Young and Joe Montana when you're the 49ers quarterback, where it's like your cardinal sin is following up two of the best of all time.
I will say too, with Poole, for like, I feel like the first half or the first fourth of the season, it felt like he was just doing a lot of side to side dribbling, right? Like he was very just indecisive, and that leads to a lot of passing up shots that he should be taking. So as frustrating as it is to watch him struggle from three like this, or just get he's one of the players in the entire NBA where he is not scared to get rejected at the rim. You know what I mean? Like no. when he gets rejected, it's aggressive, right? Like they're the centers, or the backline defender is swatting the shit out of that thing.
And this team needs that a little bit, right? Like, because sometimes you feel like it's just three pointer. Like someone, like, even if it's not going to work, go to the rim just once, and honestly, it's him and Kuminga who are the only guys who kind of have that in their arsenal, and like it's hit or miss, so.
And at the rate that this team turns the ball over, you'd rather see a missed shot, right? I mean, I know it's like, that simplifies it a little too much, but there's at least a chance of it going in versus, a turnover that just kind of negates the entire possession.
Let's talk standings real quick before we get to the voicemails. We got a handful. The Warriors are 7th, 36-36. Because as we know, they win every home game and they lose every road game, so they should be 500.
Yeah.
A half game behind Dallas, who they play on Wednesday. They play Houston before that, and when they play Dallas, I feel like that game's going to determine, honestly, who will get the 60. It'll determine the tiebreaker, but I feel like given how close they are, neither team's going to get enough separation that the tiebreaker doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
I think that matters. Minnesota losing Ant Edwards right behind them, kind of a break for the Warriors, and then OKC and the Lakers right behind them. Am I just despondent and thinking like I don't really see them moving forward, and I don't really see them falling far behind? They're going to be in the 7-8 game no matter what. Like, yeah, they got 10 games left. In theory, they could easily get to the 5 seed. I mean, they're not that far behind, but based on everything I've seen, based off the fact that we have no idea if Wiggins is coming back, GP2 at best is back in 4 games, maybe.
Yeah.
And like, it just feels like they're on this 500 trajectory, and that 500 trajectory feels like it's going to put them in the 7-8 game.
Doesn't it, as you were talking that out, and as down as we are, I think in general about this team, don't you feel like it's kind of setting up because of just how the West has been in general, right? It feels like it's setting up to be, yes, they'll be in the play-in game. They'll play at 7-8. They'll probably win if it's if it's Minnesota, they'll definitely, they should win.
You feel good about that matchup.
Yeah. And then if they end up taking on, which right now would be the Kings Warriors in the 2-7, like on paper, the Kings should be favored, but that smells very much upset, like an upset waiting to happen. And then all of a sudden the narrative just kind of shifts again. You know what I mean? And it's just funny how that's, I mean, it might be the Grizzlies too. Obviously, the Kings and Grizzlies still have a long way to go here, and then they have the same record, but it's just funny as you were talking that out, you just start fantasy booking.
Isn't that what's most frustrating? Like, it's not an irrational. The scenario you painted out is not like, a Spurs fan like creating fan fiction in last place. Like, it's a very realistic scenario where, like, okay, they're in the 7-8, they beat a team they're slightly better than, and then they play a Sacramento team who's good, but if the Warriors are closer to whole, you like their chances in the playoffs against a team who hasn't been there.
Right. Also, Kings terrible defensively. So that,
I mean, given
pick them apart.
Given the way both teams are going, no game in Sacramento would be under 300 total points. Like, no, 155, 154, and then it's just a question of if Steph or Fox has the ball last, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's in some ways that drives my frustration because I want to be uninvested. I want to move on to the offseason, just be like, not their year. Let's get into that draft content. Let's pull up your guy KOC and let's look at that draft board. And like, is Anthony Black our guy? Is that the one? Like that sort of thing. But the scenario you painted is not only very close to realistic, it's like very believable. So I can't give up on the season. So I have to invest in every game. So I have to watch them in Memphis and be like, they're about to come back, and then watch Jaren Jackson hit a bunch of threes and get mad.
Right.
Yeah, none of this is a personality flaw on my part, of course.
Never. It never is, Sam.
I don't know, man. It's look, we're gonna find out either they were long conning us all year, or they are who they are. Like we're 72 games into it.
Right. Either way, it's going to be very frustrating at the end of this because, either way, like, they're either going to get bounced early in the playoffs, and you just have to kind of think of, if they didn't trick off so many of these games, they would have been a higher seed, maybe home court, this, that, and the third. But then on the flip side, if they do end up winning a first round series and kind of finding their legs, you're asking yourself the question, where was this all year? And, can I get back all that anxiety and stress that was caused watching this team, struggle against all these teams who were just not as good as they were. So it's a double-edged sword, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some calls. We got some good ones here. Appreciate you.
How you doing, boys? It's Nadeem from Scotland. Hope you are both
well.
I'm driving home to watch last night's game, 24 hours behind everybody as usual. Couple of things. Where do you guys think Tyrese Halliburton would be in terms of development if the Warriors had drafted him? And also, do you think the Warriors would be in a much better position and kind of shape if they did choose Halliburton? And the second thing is, I think it's such a strange season this season. Like, 1 minute I think the Warriors, especially when they play at home, I think once we get to the playoffs, I think we can flick that switch and the team will really kind of turn up. And I don't see anybody beating the Warriors 4 times over 7 games. So I'm confident whenever we play at home, whenever we play after a home game. But then as soon as we play in a road game, I'm thinking, this team just doesn't have enough to get it over the line. So kind of really just wondering your thoughts in terms of if you think when the Warriors get to the playoffs, if we can flip that switch and will they show up and will they win that title? Cheers, boys.
You guys have fans in Scotland.
Shout out, Lightyears International.
That Lightyears International. That's great accent, by the way. I love the Scottish accent.
Nadeem, my guy, I appreciate the call. So the first part of the question was, how would Tyrese Halliburton be if he was on the Warriors? I do think that's a fair question because, we do this with every draft. Oh, look at him cooking. Imagine if the Warriors took him. Well, he doesn't get to dribble around with the ball in his hands for 40 minutes a game next to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green in the Warriors. So we don't know. I do think part of it is just kind of like you see the finished product and you kind of wish you had that on the team and that sort of thing. So I don't know.
Do you do that with? I mean, so for a while people were doing that with LaMelo, right? I think that was the guy because naturally he was drafted right after Wiseman.
Yeah.
I mean, recently, and to your point, like, you only see the finished product. I had been doing that with Halliburton a lot, I think, over the past year or so, just because of he's just such a smart player, right? And that's the kind of guy that the Warriors just need. And look, this also comes after, what was it, 3 seasons with Wiseman where he just couldn't get on the floor, and you're like,
yeah.
If there's just another usable player here, it's like Tyrese Halliburton. Look, obviously there's some domino effects there of what that means for Jordan Poole, and does he become this player that he has become now? Probably not. But I mean, it's hard not to see it and think what could be. And I think that's that's just the beauty of sports and all this draft stuff in general. He's the player I've done that the most with the Warriors in recent memory, though, is Tyrese Halliburton. It's funny that he brings him up because I've had that conversation a lot actually in the last couple of months.
He's just so clearly a Steve Kerr player. He's so clearly
exactly.
Like LaMelo, the talent is undeniable. But are the Warrior core guys cool with him just deciding to like pull from 28 while they stand?
Yeah,
I guess they're cool. I guess they're cool with Jordan Poole doing it. So, but like
for the most part,
you know what I'm saying? Because like LaMelo defends and like Tyrese Halliburton defends, and it's
that draft was also weird though. I remember some people some people were mocking Halliburton to the Warriors at 2. Some people, there's a reason he was drafted to, like, what was he, 11th, 12th?
I've let it go as a Warrior guy. Like, I understand the concept that they didn't get workouts. There's the whole COVID protocol thing. Like, there's more variables there. Like, you'd like your team to do better in those circumstances, and like certain teams did do better. But like, I've let it go. So.
That's a healthy thing. That's probably the most healthy response to just kind of seeing what could have been, with this Wiseman stuff.
Yeah. Let's get to the next one.
Hey, yo, guys. I got a question for you. This is Fresh Donuts. Just one question. How long before
Fresh Donuts, my guy.
Kuminga is better than Poole? All right. Hope to hear the answer.
Woo. That is the hot question we've wanted to dance around all show. I will say this. I think Kuminga has a higher upside than Poole. Like, I think in 3 years, maybe 5 years, Kuminga has a chance to be a top 10 player in the NBA. He has a chance to be like a Jimmy Butler, a Pascal Siakam, I don't know why I went to those two players. Because I didn't want to get cocky and go like Kawhi Leonard, you know what I'm saying? But like he has a chance to be like a real effective two-way player who matters. And I think Jordan Poole's probably a little worse than that long term. But given how good Kuminga's playing, like, let me ask you, who do you think will be the better player in 3 years?
I mean, I still have Poole, but not by much. Kind of given like how this year has gone. I will offensively. So, okay, wait, no, I'm walking.
You're waffling.
Because if you're looking at the whole package, and now you have Siakam and Jimmy Butler in my head, so I'm trying to think of like the two-way capabilities of what Kuminga could be. Yeah, I mean the ceiling is definitely higher for what Kuminga could be, and especially on both ends of the floor. So yeah, I mean, I'll not flip that. I'll go Kuminga, but not by much. And then again, that could be a different answer, I think, by the end of this year or, a year from now. But that's a great question and very timely given kind of the topics we were talking about earlier.
Let me ask you this. What do you want to see from Kuminga? And what do you want to see from Jordan Poole for that next step?
I mean, Kuminga, I think I'd like to see a little bit. I mean, his jumper's gotten a lot more smooth, and it's better. It's more reliable now. Like whenever he shoots a three, it's less of that oh shit type of reaction. Like you're like okay, and their teams are still leaving him open, sagging off of him pretty significantly. But he's now in that range where he's making him pay. Because basically right now they're either taking away his drive or since they're taking away his drive, maybe a little bit of midi. I don't know. I think that's just another dimension that the Warriors just don't have a lot of, I should say. So that'd be interesting. And then in terms of Poole, I mean, if he could just remove the step back three from his game, I think you got to go with the extremes with this guy, right? Because he's a much better shooter than what he has displayed this year. But again, I would just love to see the numbers on what he's shooting on a step back three versus your point from earlier on his, when his feet are set. It must be shocking and it must be staggering. So that's where I'd like to see him make some changes, and he probably won't because he's out there trying to impress the ladies, and that's fine. He's a very aesthetically pleasing game.
I mean, look, when he goes to the in and out dribble, I'm there, and then he puts it up and it goes off the rim, and I'm like, I'm a little less there. But I think for me, Kuminga, it's a little more straightforward. I just want to see the shot get. It seemed like in the third quarter tonight, he shot it with confidence. I just want to see him shoot it the way Andrew Wiggins shoots it, where it's like, I'm open, up, like that sort of thing. Because if he does that, everything else will come around. He's obviously a freak athlete to the rim. He's a freak defender. He can do a bunch of things. It's just about the shot. Anytime you hesitate on the shot, you're bailing the defense out. And, Draymond can get away with hesitating because he does so many other things, even though I'd prefer he didn't. Kuminga, I just want him to get a little more consistent there because that's going to be the thing that defines him being a potential star, which I think he can be. And then on the Jordan Poole side, just like compete harder on defense.
Sure.
I actually can live with his offense if he just digs in a little more defensively. I feel like, look, no one's happy this year. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Again, it's vibes, man.
Calling morning after the the Grizz loss. I have not listened to the post-game pod, still too just frustrated, but was having a thought about Poole, and forgive me if you cover this ad nauseum, but my framework for thinking about this is just like the Warriors don't ask him to do anything he hasn't shown that he's capable of doing for stretches. And so when he doesn't do it, it feeds the frustration in a way that when Anthony Lamb's not playing well, like, that's fine, right? Like, his capabilities are such that it doesn't do any good to get frustrated with him. He's a two-way guy. I think Poole and, to some extent, Wiggins are the two members of this team where they will consistently make choices to basically play not to their capabilities, and I hope everything's all right with.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a call from a couple days ago, but I do think it echoes the broader sentiment, which is like with more responsibility comes more expectations, and the more expectations comes more disappointment. You know, he's kind of drilling at the same thing we've talked about for a while. Anyway, let's get to the next one.
Hey boys, here we are again. Another fake comeback. Cut it to 2. 9-point game. Holy shit, what are we doing right now? Another Saturday ruined. I was chilling, eating some early dinner. Trauma. Road Warriors to road kill, I saw on Twitter. That's crazy. Have a great weekend, boys.
I think I know that caller. I won't comment. You know, I respect the privacy. But if this doesn't change, I need them to prioritize defense, because I can't go through another season of them looking like the greatest team on earth at home and looking like the Warriors team you and I grew up on the road.
And I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, a lot of, I guess, newer Warrior fans are just, you know, I've had conversations with them just kind of, you know, in my non-Twitter spaces, and they're more baffled, and they're like, who is this team? And in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, yeah, we've seen this team before. It's just weird that they've now transposed themselves from like 2010, 2011 to 2023, right? So it's very, very strange. Again, at some point this will all be explained, Sam, and it will be, I think it will take a load off of everyone's back. But until that, it's just it's unexplainable.
All right, we got one more call, and then
let's do it.
Hey guys, it's Mike Ferguson from Los Angeles. Get Jordan Poole to
the
Orlando Magic where he belongs. That's really it. Enough. This is awful. Season's over. First round exit unless Steph is scoring like 60 a night. Crazy stuff.
I appreciate you, Mike. I know you listen. We'll talk about Poole to Orlando in the offseason.
Steve Cerruti at the Ringer is a big Magic fan, and him and I have had conversations. I remember last year we had a lot of conversations of Jordan Poole would look nice with us over here at the Magic, and you know, this is in the middle of, you know, they were about to hit, you know, lock in the 3 seed in the playoffs last year.
We're also locked into like Poole mania out here.
Yeah. You're like, no. He's the heir apparent. You know what I mean? He's the guy who's
Steve Young
timelines. Yeah, this is when the second timeline still existed, and you're like, he's leading the timeline. That conversation's now, again, I'm still on. I don't think the Warriors should trade Jordan Poole, but if the conversations were to be had, I'd pick up the phone. If the Magic were calling, I just pick it up.
Where's
say what's up?
Where's your guy Steve landing on that one now?
Oh, I think he's now that they have Paolo and Fultz is playing a little bit better.
He's in denial. He's in denial. He threw that take out there a year ago.
Yeah, I'm exposing.
I never said that. That was KOC.
Yeah, exactly. It was in private, so he can deny it forever.
Oh, Ben, I appreciate you. You got anything you want to plug before we get out here?
Yeah, you know, check out Ringer NBA show, what we're doing over there. Ringer Wrestling show. I do a show every Wednesday now over there. Wednesday worldwide. We got WrestleMania coming up here in 2 weeks, so I'll be using that to as I frantically check how where the Warriors are in the standings. So check us out over there and everything we've got going on at the Ringer.
Appreciate you,
Sam.
All
Thank
right,
you so
we're
much,
out here.
man. Always fun.
Let's have a good one, guys.